In today's show, everything you say in that coffee shop is everybody's going to hear. And I want to go somewhere else. So I get that what you're talking about. So I had this whole idea. But at the end of the day, when the coach was talking to me about all this stuff, he's like, okay, you can't do the coffee shop. Like that's going to so far derail everything. And I'm like, yeah, but I want this consumer connection. So Mo, I will live vicariously through you and Vel, and I will be supporting you. And when you open one here in Nashville, I'll be a customer. I'm ready.
Oh, we're ready to get there. It's amazing how many people want us to come there already. It's one of those, ideas that it's really valuable. Coffee shops have been around for forever. This third space was the library when I was a boy. Today, it doesn't really exist as a coffee shop experience. Starbucks and Duncan Donuts, God bless them, they own 65% of the market, but they're actually shrinking their footprint and they're going to the to-go model. So drive-through is really valuable. They're trying to shrink real estate, sell more product. I mean, that's their mandate.
In today's ultra-competitive business world, being a successful entrepreneur or business owner can be very challenging. Fortunately, contemporary times have blessed us with resources for tackling those challenges and getting us to success more quickly than we could have imagined. Welcome to The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan, a podcast that explores how the world's most powerful entrepreneurs grow incredible companies. This podcast looks at the 5 keys to unlocking success as an entrepreneur. A successful educator turned entrepreneur, Jason's mission is to use his gifts of teaching and leadership to help others get the results they want out of life. Join Jason every week and learn the keys to grow a truly successful business.
Welcome back to the show. I'm the real Jason Duncan, and man, I have got a really great conversation on tap for you today. This guy, Mo Hamzian, we met through his broker who got him onto my show and didn't realize, obviously didn't know him, but didn't realize how much we had in common. But you're going to have a cool story today from a guy who was born in Iran, immigrated into the UK as a kid, lived there most of his adult life, and then recently, over the last 5 years, moved here to the United States. And his entrepreneurial journey is one to behold. It's some pretty cool stuff. And what he's working on now, the concept Vel, which he's the CEO of a company called Vel, VEL, is going to revolutionize the coffee shop that we experience on a daily basis. And we're going to talk a little deeply about that. But let me give you a little bit of background on Mo. He's a co-founder and CEO of the company Vel, as we talked about, but that's not the only thing he's done. He had a very successful real estate career. And before that, he was in the publishing business. All of these things led him to be where he is today. He's a serial entrepreneur. He has a very dynamic background. He's a London Business School Sloan Fellow. He's an established leader with 20 years experience in nearly all things business, and he excels at growing businesses and creating value. And he has successfully exited projects with a total value of over $150 million. And so by you tuning in today, whether you're on a podcast player or you're watching this on YouTube or C-Suite TV, I want to thank you for being here, because it's you being here that gets me awesome guests like Mo. So if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't left a 5-star review, make sure you do that. Now, let me introduce you, and you help me welcome Mo Hamzian. Mo, thanks for being on the show today, man. I'm really excited about our conversation. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, Duncan, good to meet you. I'm so happy to be here. I watch your show, listen to your show. I'm a fan.
Well, that means a lot. That really does mean a lot, because, we were talking pre-show. You and I got connected through an agent, I think your agent, to reach out to me and get me on the show. So it's always flattering to have super successful people like you reach out to me and say, hey, I want to be on your show. Because I look at myself as I'm just this little nobody in Nashville, Tennessee, doing this show. And to have people like you come on the show is really an honor. And so I'm really looking forward to meeting you here today, because we really don't know each other. I've got I've got your intro and your bio, and that's about it, man. So I'm excited to get to know you. So you're coming to us from somewhere in Northeast Florida today. So how's the weather in Florida? It's nice in Nashville right now, but it's supposed to snow a couple inches this weekend. It's in the middle of March. This is crazy. We don't ever get snow like that. But how's it going down in Florida?
Well, it's raining. And as you can probably tell, and your audience will probably tell in a few minutes, I'm English. And because it's raining here, I'm slightly homesick. It rains all the time in England. And believe it or not, I've been here for 4 or 5 years, and we'll talk about it, but I still think in Celsius. So whatever I try to tell people what temperature it is. I know what Fahrenheit means, and obviously, but I feel temperature on my skin in Celsius. So for Florida, it's pleasant. It's not too hot. It's raining.
Well, I wish I knew Celsius. All I know about Celsius is that 0 is freezing, and that makes sense. We're in Fahrenheit, 32 is freezing, and that doesn't make sense. So I don't understand why we Americans have stayed on that scale when the rest of the world seems to have gone the other direction. But here we are. So how long, as you said, you've been here in the States for 5 years? Is that right?
I did. I moved in 2016, and Europe and UK was going through a major transition back then. And Brexit was happening, and Brexit was this idea that Europe and UK wanted different sovereignty, and they wanted to kind of separate. And we had a bit of a vote that said, do you want to stay in Europe? Do you want to leave Europe on a referendum basis? So the people got to say which way they wanted to go. And we voted out. And very quickly, I realized there's an enormous headwind coming to the UK. And my family and I decided, let's look at other markets to go and look at for the next 10 years or so.
So you moved here as a result of the Brexit vote. Is that fair to say? Pretty much.
And moving countries, even in today's market, is what an imperfect decision that is. Imperfect information. You're not making great choices. You haven't tested before you buy. Switching costs are high. Everything about it is difficult. But retrospectively speaking, it was a great decision to have made back then.
So you said you moved your family here. So tell me a little bit about your family.
So married with a kid, small family. The family nucleus is again, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, now over a drink at some point. In Europe, it's slightly different. Europe is a very dense market. So people have 1.5 children, maybe one. A lot of my friends actually don't have any kids. So a family of 3 is perfectly normal. Where I've come to the US, it's such a pleasure because actually my co-founder, he's a family of 5. He's got 3 kids. So in US terms, relatively speaking, my family is small, but in UK terms, it's standard deviation.
Well, we got a lot more room to move around here than they do in the UK, huh?
Exactly right. And it's not just to interrupt you. It's not just the population of the US that makes it so magnificent as a single market. It's got 6-7 times the population of the UK, but it's also that attitude. It's that mentality of anything is possible, and that's some of the keys to success. And I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we. So, what does your wife and kid? What do you guys think? What do they think about the living here?
Man, what's not to love? Right now, we live by the beach. My wife is South African, and South Africans are quite adventurous. She lived by the beach. She grew up by the beach. And both of us grew up in the countryside. So we weren't really, living in a city and used to it. Although we lived in London, loved it. And my kid loves it here. What's not to like? The weather is great. America is a large single market, lots of entertainment, really good standard of living.
Did you go straight to Florida when you moved here, or did you go somewhere else first?
No, I did. I went straight to Florida. And you may ask why. We had a place here, and we came for holiday and came back, and holiday and came back. And every time I came to the US, I came with a smile. Every time I went back on the plane, we were miserable. We were moping around, wondering why are we going back? And in the end, when we decided, UK is not right at the moment for us, it was a natural progression to say, well, we have a place in Florida. Let's go and try it there.
Yeah, well, you're in a good spot there. That's that section where you're at, Amelia Island's a very, very beautiful area. There's a spot down there called Ormond by the Beach, Ormond by the Sea, I think. I don't know if you know where that is. It's south of where you are, I think. My wife and I discovered it quite by accident over, we were between Thanksgiving and Christmas. We did a 2-week trip down to Key West in our RV. And on the way back, my wife was like, let's find somewhere on the way back on the East Coast of Florida to camp on the beach. And we found that by accident as we were driving. She was on the laptop kind of figuring out where to go, and we found it. And so that was the first time we'd ever spent any time in that Northeast section of Florida on the coast, and we loved it. We absolutely loved it. So welcome to the US. We're glad you're here. I've got another colleague of mine who a similar story to yours. He's from the UK, and he lives now in the Hilton Head, South Carolina area, which again, not terribly far from where you are, but just north of where you are. And he came, they were doing a holiday back and forth with the family and decided, we just want to live here. And they've been here much longer than you. I think they've been here 20, 25 years. They've been here a long time, but welcome to the US. So now let's get into your story of a business. So when, a lot of entrepreneurs that I talk to, they have these really, these stories about as a kid, they were doing things that led them into entrepreneurship, or some will say, well, I didn't really think about it until college. Others, it wasn't until they're an adult. That was my story. I didn't become an entrepreneur until I was in my 30s. But so what's your origin story as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I was born in Iran, and for the first 10 years of my life, I was there. And in the 1970s, the country was war and revolution. So for 10 years of my life, life was very, very turbulent and transient and enormously insecure. You can imagine living in that kind of environment, highly stressful. And in the end, we managed to leave and we came to the UK, and we adopted the UK as a home in the mid-80s. And then soon after that, I went to boarding school. Within 2 years, I went to boarding school. And within a year of going to boarding school, and I'm coming to this idea of entrepreneurship, I realized one thing fast and rapidly, that ultimately you put your head on the pillow at night alone, and therefore you need to live with those decisions, whether they're good or bad, and your aspirations are yours. So once I realized that, it became enormously empowering. And I realized in boarding school, when you're on your own and you're foreign and you're immigrant, particularly in the 1980s and early 90s, there's a lot of prejudice, far more so then than today, which meant you have to solve a lot of problems. Some of them are micro problems, some of them are larger problems. So you become very good at solution. Then once you realize that, you realize you're on your own, you have a lot of power, you can problem solve, then and doing that can create value and you can make money out of it. And those were the seeds from the age of like 10 to 16 that drove me to realize, actually, this could be a really fun path.
So problem solving came natural to you, and you saw that as a way to enter entrepreneurship. How big of a difference do you think it is being a problem solver versus a problem finder?
Well, I mean, you could say that, that line from The Matrix, you could say if you solve problems, problems find you, and therefore you have to deliver solutions. Or if you are good at solving problems, and there are lots of problems around the world. Some of them are itches and scratches, or some of them are major pain points, whether it's in social dynamics or geopolitics or commerce. And that's why value is created, because you can solve those problems. So I say inherent in me is to see problems, but in a very optimistic way. I'm impatient, but I'm optimistic.
I remember having a conversation with one of my employees a long time ago, and we were talking about problem solving and how much problem solving was a skill that employees needed to have in order to be effective and indispensable in the workplace. And but what happened, what I found is that from an employee perspective, if you continue to drive that message home to your employees to be problem solvers, they're not looking for problems. They're waiting for someone to say, here is a problem, now go fix it. Where entrepreneurs tend to be the problem finders and the problem solvers. So I told him, I said, listen, I don't need problem solvers. I got lots of problem solvers. I need problem finders. I need you to go find the problems. And that changed his mind shift such that he ended up becoming, he is absolutely one of my key employees, one of the vice presidents of my company, and has been the longest tenured employee that I've got. So that's why I asked that question. I wondered what your perspective was. So let me ask you this. So in 10 to 16, you're problem finding and solving. Entrepreneurship is starting to bubble up in your blood a little bit. When did you start your first real company? I mean, not just making money, whatever it was you were doing as a kid, but like, when did you start your first real company? Yeah,
so straight out of university or college, 21. I still hadn't quite cracked on to what I want to do. My father is a major patriarch, alpha male, has had lots of successes and also failures. But I knew family business or working with my father is not conducive. Is not, you need your own path, especially as a man, and I did that. So after university, a friend of mine was starting a publishing company, and I bought into that. And it was producing, the Balkans and Eastern Europe was a major thing in the mid 90s to the late 90s. It was still still ex-Soviet bloc. It was an undiscovered territory, but lots of wealth and affluence, particularly in manufacturing and tourism and travel. So we produced a publication that would shed light on those territories. It would shed light on those opportunities. And it was a circulated analog publication with a really good circulation and advertising revenue, subscription revenue. And I realized doing that for several years, and I sold out of it. I realized that information is really, really important, and people pay for it, for reliable information. And this is still, 96 was internet, kind of the start of the internet, and the real boom only started in 1990, 2000. So this was pre that. But realizing that good information and data is key helped me later on down the life. And after that, we'll talk about it, but I fell into real estate.
So you started in the publishing business, and you bought in, made some money, eventually sold your shares in that. Did you go straight into real estate next?
I did. I was at funny story. I was at a dinner party, and I overheard a deal in real estate. And these two people were boasting about they bought this piece of land and they'd done X, Y, Z to it, and they managed to put a building and flip it and made this level of return. And my kind of ears went ping, and I was like, well, why can't I do that? let me find out more. And I did. I took the money that I had from the sale of the publishing business, and I did exactly that. So this is now like 99, 2000. And I bought a piece of land, and in England, adding value requires a lot of cajoling, and permits and planning and design are really, really important. So you front load the value you make, and often, you've made your profit in what you've bought and not what you've sold. So solving early on problems and managing risk is really, really important. But fortunately, I got very, very lucky. And deal number one was a great success. And the young man in you goes, I'm really good at this. Not knowing that, luck had a major role to play in it. And then it was more about repeat, improve, become more sophisticated, larger project, more complicated risk, better financial engineering, better assets, larger buildings, offloading larger number of units. And that took about 10 years of my life until I fell into something else.
All right, well, let's break that down, because I really feel like that there's a key in that. One of the things that listeners to the show know that I talk about these 5 keys of success, and being at the right place at the right time is one of those keys. And you just gave that story from your own story. Is you're at this dinner party and you overhear these two people talking about this deal. Did you know these two people, or do you know them today?
I don't know them today, and I didn't know them then. And I didn't really press buttons too much because I didn't want to be dissuaded. I knew in that moment, if I have that conversation, sometimes ideas are fragile, and you need to go and, you need to go and nurture them for them to become valuable. And sometimes you need to do that quickly, but by yourself, or quickly, or with an inclusive team. So I knew if I go and speak to them, they might, give me information at that moment that will, pierce my motivation or inspiration in that moment. So I went away and did my own homework and realized, in fact, that they're definitely onto something.
Well, isn't it funny that real estate seems to be one of the things that most entrepreneurs either have done, are interested in, or learn about, or learn from? The Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, I'm sure you've read it, or
right.
you know what I'm talking about. I think that book talks so much about understanding real estate as this asset class that could provide true passive income, or large chunks of money through very small amounts of time investment. So congratulations for your success in real estate. And I'm really glad you went to that dinner party.
Yeah, me too. Real estate is one of those businesses that, it's simple, but it's not easy. And there are many ways to come at it. I wasn't really into the rental game, into the yield of real estate. I was much more into buy land, develop, spend money for 2 years, unload value after 2 years with low density apartments. So it was more of a project by project. What that taught me was that each project was its own mini startup. It was its own mini entity, legal entity, structure, funding, brand, product, team. So for 2 years, that was a mini startup. And it was, acquire, build, grow, add value, exit. So it was a series of project exits. And each one of them, were major multiples, large denominations. So that set me up for this startup VC culture of buy, add value, exit. So had I maybe gone into the yield world of hold cash flow, it would have been a different story for me.
Yeah, so that's an interesting perspective on the real estate. So your interest at the time, and we'll get to what you're doing now, but your interest at the time doing real estate was more the big cash out through exiting. So you kind of like today, it's very famous to do fix and flips, whether commercial or residential, mostly in residential. You buy it for a certain amount of money. You spend 6-8 months working on it, lots of capital infusion. But in the end, when you sell it, you walk with this huge payout, as opposed to a lot of people are into real estate for the cash flow purposes. And that is my primary interest in real estate personally, is for cash flow. But it's interesting that there's so many different ways to make money in real estate, isn't there? I mean, it's crazy.
It's amazing. Partly the yields were so low in England. You were, if you were breaking 3-4%, cap rates, it was okay. It was just the property values were so high and the rents weren't as high. So that wasn't a feasible. It's different now, but it was much more. And taxation structure was lend itself better to purchase, build, exit at the time. Again, things have changed slightly. And it's more fun. It lend itself better to my personality, my skill set, which was find a problem, whether it was a design problem, a financial problem, or an asset problem, fix it, build it, which is enormously exciting because you're building product. And you're building team around that product, and then sell it, which is marketing, sales and marketing, exit strategies, maximizing value, making sure the returns are there. So it had a richer life cycle for me, and maybe that's why I stuck with it.
When you were in real estate, I would be interested to know, and if you're comfortable or free to share, like financially, when you're for cash flow purposes, there's certain percentages that you can expect on residential rentals, long-term rentals, short-term rentals, et cetera, or commercial leases. But on the fix and flip, and again, that's a very, it's probably not the great example of what it was you were doing, but on that side of things where you're fixing it, building value, and you're finding the problems, and then you exit, what type of financial income would you make off of the deal? I mean, could you share one deal like, hey, we put in X number of money and we had walked away with this, to give entrepreneurs out there who are interested in this to know, oh, this is what's possible?
Well, in Europe, I've done deals both in Europe and UK. The barrier to entry is much higher. So the cash level you need to get in is much higher. So the dynamics are slightly different, but the returns are nonetheless the same. But in terms of returns, we wanted a 35% return on equity, annualized return on equity. So if we put in $1 million cash, we wanted $350,000 at the end of year one. Usually the projects were 2 years. So we really wanted to double our money in 2 years' time, double our equity, but that was leverage equity. And most of the deals were between 750 and £2 million, or it was about $3 million cash. Wow.
And did you, of course, you had some money from the publishing business that you seeded that with, but you used the word leverage. So you were leveraging most of that cash with other partners and with institutional money. Is that how that worked?
That's pretty much it. It's like mezzanine finance. You would get about 70% debt from construction loans. They weren't cheap, 6.5%, 7%. Depends on your background. Earlier on, I was paying closer to 9 to 10%. But then you would stabilize it once as construction progressed. The risk and carry dropped because you're making more progress. And so, but you could freeze interest. You would get a grace period during the development. You could roll up the interest. You didn't have the cash flow burn of repayment of interest, and you just embedded that or baked that into the total loan. that was perfectly fine. But you had a term. The hardest part was it's a 36-month term, and you'll finish in 24 months. You have 12 months to offload 40 units, 30 units. You never wanted to go to your bank, month 20 and say, "Can we extend, please?" Because that's suddenly very, very expensive. So there are some stresses and some risks in England. For instance, I purchased a police station, and you go into it without any planning consent. You have to buy that asset with total risk, knowing that you may not be able to make the units you want to make because you might not get the permit from the council. And you have to be okay with that and make those calculations of worst case scenarios. So you have to be able to move fast and make some really difficult decisions.
Well, isn't that the story of the entrepreneur? The entrepreneur is separated from the business owner. The entrepreneur is separated from the corporate employee on two factors, risk and innovation. And so on the risk side, you have to be able to accept and understand and calculate that risk, just like you did on buying that police station. And then on the other side, you've got to be able to innovate. Like, how do you turn a police station into units that people can occupy? That innovative spark and that ability to withstand risk is what separates entrepreneurs from business owners. And so many people are business owners, and they call themselves entrepreneurs, but they're not, because they don't take any risk. They don't do any innovation of any kind. But then on the other hand, you've got a lot of people that are entrepreneurs that don't own businesses. And that's the weird thing. It's like, you can be an entrepreneur and a business owner, or you can be a business owner or an entrepreneur. You're not necessarily the same in any time. But it sounds like to me, you not only were a business owner, but you're definitely playing in the entrepreneurial space as one taking risk in the real estate. So I want to recap for the listeners to hear what you did. So you took seed money from the sale of the publishing company. You put down, I assume there were probably partners involved at some point, but you 30% equity into the project. But then you would double your money. You would double your money within 2 years, in spite of the fact that you're paying 9 and 10% interest rates, which is crazy. But short-term hard money, that's actually cheap for short-term hard money today. I mean, one of my companies is a hard money lending company, and our interest rates are a lot higher than that, but it's accessible. You can get to it really, really quickly. So good job for you on that. Now, how long did you stay into the real estate market before you moved to your next big adventure?
I was, real estate is one of those things. Once you're in for life, because of the knowledge is so powerful. So I've maintained. I don't have any real estate investments, significant investments now. I'm in a different stage of my life. I'm doing something else, but that knowledge, I think, is going to stay with me forever. So I hope to carry that into the future. But really, in terms of as a dominant force in my life, it was about 10, 12 years.
Okay.
And then through real estate, one thing real estate didn't offer me was direct contact with consumer. I really missed acquiring consumer. You build wonderful products, but then it's behind the veil of realtors and agents, and they sell it on your behalf. And you really, that is it. And it's transactional, and you're done. The same customers aren't, unless you're a national home builder, those same customers aren't buying from you again. So it was a bit disappointing. And every time I sold it, I found selling those assets slightly bit of an anticlimax, because I wasn't acquiring customer. And then I wasn't able to retain customer because they weren't even my customers. So I fell into a food and beverage deal in England. And then this is when I realized this is what's been missing in my commercial life, is this idea of, lower check values, being able to involve a real kind of full dynamic of business, which is marketing, acquisition, sales, growth strategy. And again, when I was in real estate, it was much more opportunistic. So you would buy a deal, exit, jump into another deal. Towards the end, you buy another deal. Maybe you're running two at the same time, but there was no real investment theme to it, at least for me. And maybe had I had an investment team, I would have been much more successful, and I would still have been doing it. We'll never know. But the food and beverage side of things really offered that to me.
Mo, I think it's really interesting that you mentioned the consumer contact, because you and I evidently are much more alike than we probably would have known otherwise, because the businesses that I've run in the past, the businesses that I've owned, were B2C, or excuse me, B2B. And they, it was very, as you said, transactional. We do these huge multi-million-dollar projects and then we're done. We walk away. And while I do get interaction with some of the, the CEO folks or CFO folks during the project, it's not the same as selling a cup of coffee to somebody at a coffee shop. You know what I mean? So, or food and beverage, like you're talking about. So I think I have the same thing, which is why for me, my next big adventure is I'm hoping to buy a motorcycle dealerships. I'm actually under LOI right now with that because, is it going to be hard work? Yeah. Is it going to be tough? I'm going to have to get back in the trenches. Sure. But I'm really desire a business where I have consumer contact, and I haven't had that in the past as an entrepreneur. So I'm really interested to know what you think more about that. Is that what Vel is doing? Tell me about how you scratch that itch of wanting to have the consumer contact, and then how that plays into your company, Vel.
Oh man, Vel offers everything there is to give. I wake up, I kid you not when I say, I know it sounds a bit grandiose, but I wake up 4:30 in the morning, so sharp, ready to go. And it's quite incredible, this chapter of my life, that I've been doing this for such a long time, that I have this kind of new vigor for something so dynamic in my life. So Vel is exactly that. I think it touches on all things that I've been looking for personally as an operator. Put aside how incredible the value proposition is, what we're building and what we're doing and our mission behind it. But personally, it's enormously satisfying. So if you and I met, and I tongue in cheek, but if you and I met, Duncan, in a short elevator ride, and you said, Mo, I haven't seen you for a while. What are you doing in your life these days? I would say, Duncan, we're trying to bring to market the love child of Starbucks and WeWork. We think coffee shops are great. They sell great coffee, great pastry. But if you want to work out of a coffee shop, you're pretty much stuck. So we wanted to ask what the new version of a coffee shop would look like, today's market version of a coffee shop would look like. What would happen if GoPro made a coffee shop or Google made a coffee shop? So we went away and for the last 15, 16 months from ground up, started building that product, building that brand. And lots of really interesting people are behind us at the moment.
That is really cool. So that's Vel. That's what you guys are doing, is trying to figure out how to marry the WeWork, this co-working concept, with a really good coffee experience, third place experience. I think that's what Starbucks is referred to a lot of people as a third place. You got your home, you got work, but then there's this third place. So tell me a little bit more about what you guys are doing to make that a unique opportunity and experience for your customers.
So we started with exactly that. We started with experience and we started with brand. We said we needed a good brand promise. We needed an identity that is going to drive product pricing, where we go, where we don't go. So we spent about a year building brand and building space and space blueprint. One thing we've become very, very good at, anyone can make a microchip the size of a suitcase, in the olden days, but today, can you make a microchip that will fit in a phone? And that's been our real kind of mantra, is anyone can make 5,000, 6,000 square feet, singing and all dancing, bells and whistles, but can you do that at 500 square feet? Can you make sufficient revenue out of 500 square feet, offer the seating variety, offer the technology, the acoustic value for people to be able to come in micro environments and do really good quality work? So for us, it was like a ground up experience building of saying, what does acoustics mean? What does privacy mean? What does air quality mean? What does hygiene and lighting? What happens if you're left-handed versus when you're right-handed? What do these things mean in a coffee shop setting? Because coffee shops are really precious. There are these kind of transactional moments where you can go in anywhere, that anyone can go into a coffee shop, and for $10, $15 an hour, you can have a really good experience. So we wanted to recreate that.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that where you're talking about coffee and you're doing a coffee shop, because if you go back 2 years, when I exited ELS, which is a company I started back in 2010, one of the things when I started working with my business coach about what's the next big adventure, because at the time that was the only company I'd owned. Well, since then I've started 5 or 6 others and done these things, but on my list of things, my coach said, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I got this nonprofit idea, and I got this coaching business idea, and I've got this podcast idea, and I want to do a coffee shop, and literally I had this idea very much like what you're talking about. This is really funny how we're so similar here, but I had this coffee shop and I had the name, the concept, the feel, the acoustics to me are very important. There's a coffee shop my wife loves to go here locally. I won't go because the acoustics suck. I can't have a private conversation. Everything you say in that coffee shop is everybody's going to hear. And I want to go somewhere else. So I get that what you're talking about. So I had this whole idea. But at the end of the day, when the coach was talking to me about all this stuff, he's like, okay, you can't do the coffee shop. Like that's going to so far derail everything. And I'm like, yeah, but I want this consumer connection. So Mo, I will live vicariously through you and Vel, and I will be supporting you. And when you open one here in Nashville, I'll be a customer. I'm ready.
Oh, we're ready to get there. It's amazing how many people want us to come there already. It's one of those, ideas that it's really valuable. Coffee shops have been around for forever. This third space was the library when I was a boy. Today, it doesn't really exist. As a coffee shop experience. Starbucks and Duncan Donuts, God bless them, they own 65% of the market, but they're actually shrinking their footprint and they're going to the to-go model. So drive-through is really valuable. They're trying to shrink real estate, sell more product. I mean, that's their mandate. And co-working as a category is a membership experience. It's a commute. It's a warehouse experience. You've got to, there are a lot of frictions to go to a co-working experience. It's not necessarily near you. And what do you do if you want a place to work for 6 hours a week? Do you pay $300 a month for 6 hours a week? No, you don't. Therefore, you go to a coffee shop. So we're trying to complement. We're not substituting anywhere. We're complementing your home office, complementing the fact that you don't have an office or you don't want to commute. If you want 6 to 8 hours a week of power use from a coffee shop, then you'll come to us.
So what is the stage of development of Vel right now? Is that a reality in a certain location or locations already?
Yeah. So, like good startups, we've had 2 funding rounds. We are actually in round 2. Happy to report we are oversubscribed, which is a terrific feeling. We've got a great advisory board. We were 1, became 2. We're now a really nice team with 65 investors. And we are about 2 months from launching shop number 1 in Savannah, Georgia. We are trying to button down location number 2 in Charlotte. And then if we get Charlotte, then location 3 and 4 will probably be Charleston and Jacksonville. And we'll grow from there.
That's great.
Exciting times ahead.
That is great. Well, I was going to say, listen, if you need investors, talk to me, but it looks like you got that handled. So good for you, man. Well, when did you start Vel? I know conceptually it's probably been bubbling up in the back of your mind for a really long time, but when did it officially kind of launch and you started seeking investors?
We didn't start the fundraise till last year, but it started in summer 2020. I sort of, the idea found me, the problem found me. I tried solving it. I realized within weeks of the campaign, solopreneurs are statistically far less successful. They're more risky as a business if you're doing something by yourself. So I knew Jack, my co-founder and COO. He lives on the island with me, a really amazing guy, very, very smart. I said, and he was in finance and wealth management. I said, Jack, the story goes, Jack, why don't you stop selling money and come and sell some coffee with me instead? And, within minutes, not really, but within weeks, he said yes, which was terrific. I thought he was having a midlife crisis when he said yes. And he said, yeah. So we spent about 4 months, honestly, in the middle of the pandemic, driving down we did about 7,000 miles. I'm driving up and down the country, field testing, coffee shops, co-working. And even in the thick of pandemic, every coffee shop we walked to, there were about 16, 17 laptops working. So it was eye-opening. So we then started building this value proposition. And then we started fundraising in January 2021. We had our first round closed in February and then continued then and opened up another round about 3 months ago.
Do you remember when Starbucks charged for Wi-Fi access? Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, every once in a while, I remember going into Starbucks and saying, wow, yeah, they charge for the access. I'm not doing it. And when they finally released it to public Wi-Fi, I was like, this is why we come here anyway. And I know their bottom line had to increase, significantly. Well, so is your model with Vel, is it going to be a corporate model where you're going to own your own stores, or are you going to franchise this, or have you thought about that?
That's such a good question. I think it's too early for us to answer, although some decisions will alienate one direction over another. I think so. We want to, in the short term, in the next 5 to 7 years own IP, have real control over the brand and the value proposition. So, once we get to 10 or 20 of these, and I think that will happen in the next couple of years, we can make some new decisions. But in the short term, we really want to hold IP and be able to innovate. Why? Because we think robotics are going to be a major thing. We think customization and curation in a coffee shop are going to be a major thing. What if space could change? If we franchise these units, we can't innovate everywhere the way we want to, because we've already sold the license, for instance. So I think, and the workplace is changing so fast. What happens when holograms comes to effect? What happens when people have maybe a less of a reliance on coffee shops? What do we do when the amenity space of these amazing buildings becomes so good then people maybe won't leave, and we have to change our footing and maybe become the amenity space of choice for these residential developers? If you want that iteration and agility, I don't think you can franchise.
Yeah. Well, I don't know much about the franchising model in general, but I know that certainly lots of people have made money through the franchising model and the real estate model, but I applaud what you're accomplishing with Vel. It's VEL for those that are listening here. It's VEL, Vel. But I really like it. And I also think, just as a little tidbit of an idea, is that a lot of times people want to go to the coffee shop to disconnect. They want to connect with some person, but they want to disconnect digitally. And so, but you can't escape, because there's a Wi-Fi is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And so maybe there's this spot in each Vel location that's the disconnect, no phones allowed, Wi-Fi doesn't work in that area, that type of thing. That might be, I'm a member of a club here in Nashville, and they're building something called the Vault. And it's a private room that cell phone signal will not work in. So if you need to have a private meeting, you can go in there. So I think more people are wanting that escape spot to get away from the dings and the bings and the buzzes and the vibrations of your phone and your laptop. So you may want to, that's a free idea you get for being on the show.
Duncan, you're a genius. And I tell you why. My hair is standing up because we're actually incorporating that. And we're going to have these kind of phone booth pods at Vel. And we're thinking about a personality for each pod, a stimulation pod, a relaxation pod. But I think one of the pods is going to be exactly that. It's going to be this disconnection pod that you go in there and nothing will happen. It's just you without the stimulation of the world. One thing we're really trying to work at Vel is, what does psychological safety mean? What happens because we're overstimulated? What is inherent? What are the fundamentals of flow? For you to be able to be in full stream productivity? What does that look like? And what stimulations do you need? What do you need to remove to be able to be in that zone? That idea of limitless, that movie, but organically speaking. So we're trying to build that with good hardware and good technology, good scent, good lighting, but also good direction, good user interface, which is what you described. If you're creating a vault, it's ushering a certain behavior that is acceptable, not acceptable. So no, it's really exciting stuff. And these ideas we actually have a behavioral scientist on our team. She used to be one of my professors, Professor Gabe, and she's helping us a lot with understanding these kind of dynamics.
That's great, man. Well, let me ask you this. So you're a successful guy. This is a show called The Root of All Success. How does Mo Hamzian define success?
You definitely have to enjoy what you're doing. That's number one. You have to be passionate. I'm built with singularly obsessed. I'm a kind of a dog with a bone personality, and sometimes a bit of a bull in a china shop. Much more when I was younger. So I really, really have to enjoy going after my target, whatever that is. Otherwise, the drive won't be there. Because for me to win the equivalent of my Olympic gold, and we'll talk about that, it requires an enormous amount of grit. And maybe a 4-day week can cut it. But even if you're working in those 4 days and not 7 days, it requires an enormous amount of commitment and drive. You better enjoy it. So that's top of the metric. Number two, you have to be really working with great people. That team is really, really important. It's impossible to create wonderful things by yourself. So you have to be able to have a team that complements you. There's a certain level of trust. The product has to be right for success. There has to be a bigger mission. something much bigger than yourself that can galvanize you, your team, the product, the customer, to make evangelists out of it. And you really have to solve major problems. Even if it's for a few people, it has to be a major problem, and get behind it. And you have to earn money. There has to be good revenue, good income for you to be able to do that, because those are one of the metrics that shareholders care about, I care about. And then you have to be doing it at the right time. You definitely, if it's too late, it's less interesting for me. If it's really, really too early, it's also less interesting for me. It has to be the biting point of doing something at the right time. And then success is micro successes for me. It's about getting to certain destinations that I know I've got there and then moving from there. But honestly, I don't really think about every day what the success looks like for me. I'm too busy doing at the moment. Ask me in a few years whether I'm successful. I'll tell you then.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you next. I mean, with that as a definition, what you just said, do you consider yourself to be successful?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm in a startup. I would always like to earn more money. CEOs of an early stage startup, we earn, very little. That's the right thing to do, by the way. But no, honestly, putting that aside, I love what I do. My team loves what they do. We're building something really, really great. I feel really lucky, and I'm doing it. And you joke around, but I live in a town with 10,000 people. But I've been able to create this with my co-founder because of this large single market, because of the attitude of the country. There's no way you could do this in a village out of France. Impossible. A village out of Poland, Germany. I mean, these are European countries, first world countries. Why? Because this single market is just incredible. And I'm also very lucky to be here.
Well, I know that the listeners to the show will know that the 5 keys of success that I always talk about on the show were born out of these types of conversations that I've had very casually with people over coffee or bourbon or cigars or dinner or whatever it happens to be. And these 5 keys you've mentioned almost every one of them in our conversation today already, passion being the first one. And in your definition of success, you said that you have to be passionate about it. But what's interesting about that is that your definition of success, at least by the context of your answer, was the emotional side of passion, which is what most people think. It's about enjoying what you do. But what I found is that passion, the key to success, when I say passion, is the mental side of passion. It's the willingness to endure. And you used the word obsessed. And I had another guest on the show recently who said his preferred definition of passion is obsession, because as a successful entrepreneur, you have to be obsessed with what it is that you're doing. Do you agree with that concept?
100%. 100%. I think to drive, if you want to become, a leader, or you have enormous aspirations to become, the Frank Sinatra or the Elon Musk. Not that many people become that, but that is your aspiration. That's your rudder. It requires a high degree of commitment, and you can't white knuckle that. You can't willpower that for 7 years. It's impossible. Human beings aren't designed that way. Short-term willpower is okay, but you really have to fall in love with what you're doing. And, time just evaporates. And singularly obsessed requires focus at the same time. So it's really important to have singular obsession.
And I think that, too, you talk about the second key to success is being at the right place at the right time. So we talked about that dinner party. And that dinner party, you were at the right place at the right time. So that's certainly played a part in your story. The third key is knowing the right people. Who are the right people in your story? Who are the people that helped you become who you are today?
Lots, immediate family. My wife is incredible, has been supportive for so many years, and we've been through thick and thin together. My parents, they've taught me so much in different ways, soft and hard. Father teaching me one thing, mother teaching me another. But friends along the way. I believe enormously, and I do a lot of mentoring because I believe in that, this objective other person that can help you, which to some extent, this is what you do for a living, Duncan, this idea of coaching, this objective observer. But in the early days, I mean, you might think this is delusional, but in the early days when I didn't have that mentorship, in the 1990s, when transparency wasn't there, I made them up. I read books of the greats and I said, what would she do? What would he do in this situation? What advice would they gave me? pure fiction, obviously, but based on some fundamentals. So I think you yourself, I think, a great source of power as well.
Well, thank you. And the fourth key is preparation, and it's having the know-how to pull it off. And I think that part of what your story revealed is that you were prepared to be successful as a real estate investor, and now as publishing real estate, and now as a coffee guy who's going to be developing the next big coffee opportunity, coffee experience for the consumer public. I think your preparation was in those teenage years of looking to solve those problems. And you quoted Matrix where, if you're a problem solver, problems will find you. And I think what you found was there's a problem. There's a problem with the co-working space. There's a problem with the coffee space. Starbucks and Duncan have their place in our society and in the consumer brain. But, for me, those are not coffee shops that I go to on a regular basis, even though I know I'm personal friends with one of the largest Duncan franchisees, owners, and manufacturers in the country. We're good friends with. He's been on my show, but I'm not a frequenter of those places because I prefer, those smaller coffee shops. So I think your preparation to do what you're doing now came from that, and then finally plan. The key to success is plan. The fifth key. And that's a financial ability to do things. And I want to ask you a question. You said that you invested in your friend's publishing company, and then you used that capital when you sold your equity to go do the real estate. And then the real estate, of course, gave you the capital to do everything else. But where did you get that first amount of money to invest?
I was sweat equity. It was building. I think it was building value in the business, and then selling that. If you're smart, I think, and you're capable, and you find an opportunity and you're willing to add value without much expectation in return, the greats have done it. You're unmissable. You will be unmissable. Maybe today you'll be missed, but tomorrow you're unmissable. And then you can create and generate that momentum and value, especially if you're much younger. So that's definitely possible.
That's awesome, man. Well, Mo, it's been fantastic talking to you. I love your story. I love what you're doing. And you and I have a lot of similarities. So when you get to Nashville, you definitely need to come look me up. We need to hang out. How would people get in touch with you? What is the best way for them to reach out and get in touch with you?
I'm really active on LinkedIn. I really enjoy meeting new people. I'm sure it'll be in your show notes. So find me there. We are also, you can find Vel at work@Vel, which are the social media handles. And our domain is myvel. Funny story, we tried to buy vel.com, VEL.com, but the owners wanted $750,000 for it. So we politely said no. The good news is no one else is going to buy it. So we're at myvel.com. You can find us there. And if you're ever in Savannah, make sure you look us up, or Charlotte or Charleston or Jacksonville. Maybe we'll be in Nashville sooner than you think.
That's great. Well, Mo, I'm going to give you the opportunity to give a piece of advice on your way out of the show today. So if you're thinking about the people who are listening to this show, there's a lot of different entrepreneurs. There's early stage entrepreneurs, and there's very successful entrepreneurs, and everybody in between. What would your advice be to that first group, these earlier stage people? What's your advice, just general advice for them as entrepreneurs?
It's not a glamorous piece of advice, and it's not a quick fix. But I tell you this, I mean, I'm not going to paraphrase it properly, but I'm going to try and paraphrase it because I don't remember it properly. But Sylvester Stallone talks about this idea that he's not the tallest, he's not the strongest, he's not the most good looking, he's not the most talented, but he's the most hardest working actor out there, right? And this idea of perseverance and tenacity is incredible. It will yield this compound effect of momentum. It would yield incredible results. So hard work, I would say, be prepared for it, use common sense, and you will get there.
That's great. Great advice, Mo. Well, thank you for being on the show today very much. It's such a pleasure to meet you and to hear your story. And just again, thanks for being here today, man.
I enjoyed it, Duncan. Thanks so much.
Well, there you have it. Another very successful entrepreneur sharing his story of how he became successful. And I think that if you're paying attention to what he talked about, you'll see that his definition of success revolved a lot around this idea of passion, the emotional side of passion, really enjoying what you want to do and what you're doing on a daily basis. And then he, of course, also talked about this need to be obsessive. And I liked what he said when he talked about the fact that willpower will only carry you so far. It's obsession that will carry the rest of the way. And I think that is a key that you as an entrepreneur need to understand and embrace. And that really is where we're at with the mental side of passion. That's why I talk about on the show that the word passion means willing to suffer, willing to endure. That's what it actually, the Latin root word of passion means. So if you're going to be successful, if you want to be successful, and you don't have that level of passion, that willingness to suffer or endure, that obsession that's just beyond this pure enjoyment of what you're doing, then you're probably not going to be successful. The likelihood is not very, very high. Well, what I do every day as a business coach is I help people just like you get to that place of success. As a matter of fact, my mission, my personal mission in life is to use my gifts of teaching and leadership to help people like you get the results that you want. So if you're looking for a business coach, you're looking for the opportunity to learn, how do I work less? How do I make more? What strategies do I need to put into place as an entrepreneur so I can get my business up and running, automated in such a way that I can go into that next big risk, that next big adventure, that next big innovation? Well, I want to invite you to look me up. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/exit. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/exit and check that out. I've got this business accelerator. It's an 8 hours of live group coaching that I do with people just like you. 8 hours of live coaching with me, where I teach you the 4 strategies of how you can work less and make more. I talk about how you can embrace delegation. I'll teach you exactly a plan to delegate appropriately so that you can get technology and other people to do things that you're doing now, freeing up over 50% of your time. I will also teach you how to eliminate stress. There's this law called the law of open cycles that I'll show you how you can leverage that law in your personal life, your family life, and in your business life to eliminate stress so that you can see more clearly what should be worked on versus what you're just chasing around all the time as an entrepreneur. And then I'll teach you how to establish systems and processes, because those are the things that are going to stand when you walk away from the daily operations, or at least you pull back a little bit. And I'll show you specifically my 20-point matrix, which will give you the opportunity to identify your ideal client within 5 minutes, sometimes 5 seconds. It's a very good tool that all of my clients use to identify their right opportunities and stop wasting time on people that are just kicking your tires and are terrible customers. And then the 4th strategy I'll teach you is how to invest in people. Yep. Investing in people is going to be one of the keys to make sure that you get to work less and to make more. One of the things I'll share with you in that live group coaching through the Business Accelerator is my 10-step plan on how to identify, hire, and onboard excellent employees. I figured out how to do that over my decade experience working with employees, hiring great people. I can show you exactly how to do that. So go to therealjasonduncan.com/exit and read all about it. And I'll see you in the next Business Accelerator. Well, tune in again next week when I talk with yet another amazingly successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Until then, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we invite you to visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Take charge of your business. Grow it from great to incredible. Join us again next time here on The Root of All Success.